video of yours, but then I also caught a live you were on with, I believe, Hannibal's Hungry and Steve from Rideshare
Hmm.
Rodeo, and you were
Hmm.
talking about um,
Cargo van. Yeah.
a cargo van. Okay, I think I
Cargo
called
van.
it box truck. That's probably the wrong way
Yeah.
to say it, but cargo van that you invested in and what you're going to be
Right.
doing with it. Can you share with us a little bit, like how that started? That mindset, right? That mindset of
Hmm.
that forward thinking, right? And then
Hmm.
what have you been seeing over the last? I feel like it's been maybe a couple of months
Yeah. A
of
couple of
your
months now.
experience with that. So can you kind of just
Hmm.
share with my audience like what that looks like, and maybe some people out there might be able to benefit from something like that if they might be ready.
Okay, so where it should start, well, like, at least how my steps towards getting there, or
Yeah,
just
like yeah,
what
what was
really
your
triggered me to looking into a cargo van,
yes,
which
what was the beginning? Like what triggered that? And then what have you kind of maybe even learned along the way? Just anything you're willing to share
okay,
with us about that
okay.
experience.
All right, as I've shared, I happened to be doing, it was either a roadie or a point pickup at a Walmart, and to the parking stall to my left happened to be a guy in a smaller cargo van. It was either a Ram 4-cylinder. I believe it was a Ram 4-cylinder cargo van that he had. He was a younger guy. He was 26 years old. And I'll just tell him myself, he's like 40% of my age.
Okay.
But I was impressed by what he had to say. I mean, this is a young guy talking business,
Hmm.
And I mean, um, and he's also making more money than me. I mean, he said he's
Sure.
making 8 G's a month. Here I'm making consistently 6 G's, maybe hitting 7 from time to time. He's making 8, and it's with his
And that's a
cargo
big
van.
difference. That 1 and 2K difference is a huge difference. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
right. And that's the goal right now for me, is to get to that level on a
yeah,
consistent basis.
yeah.
Um, Now he told me about him having his authority, which is when you look at those trucks, you'll see where it says a USDOT number. That
Hmm.
is like the registry of your business or your vehicle.
Yeah,
And then the MC number is your authority number, which allows you to transport items or whatever it is
yeah.
across state lines.
Right, right.
And so I've got that now for my Sprinter van / cargo van.
Now,
Um,
is that something that you have to be? You obviously probably have to pay some kind of fee, or there's
yes,
a
three
permit
hundred
fee
dollars, three hundred dollars
for one
for.
year. Is that every year? Or is it just one time?
I believe it's. You know what? I don't even. That's something I didn't even think about.
Well, because
It
some of
may
those
be.
things might be every, like sometimes they last a year, 2 years, 3 years. It's almost like
I
a
believe it's.
licensing
I believe
permit.
it's like 1 year. It's
Okay,
$300 a year, more than likely.
got it.
And
Got
so I've got I got one authority,
it. Hmm.
or and so that's for what I do.
Hmm.
And blah. He also mentioned he had a dispatcher.
Mm.
So dispatchers are kind of a hard thing with cargo van owners right now. Everybody wants to deal with the box trucks and the semis and
Hmm.
all the larger equipment. They really
Hmm.
don't like dealing with cargo van because they feel that there's not the money isn't there. I mean, people are taking loads for just the equivalent would be taking if you see a 10 mile Doordash order and you
Hmm.
accept it for $4. That's
Mm.
kind of the equivalent that's
Damn.
out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
rough. You can't do
Yeah.
that.
And so this may portend into what some of the maybe a couple other questions that you have. So my strategy has been, well, and I'm kind of disappointed that I'm not seeing the opportunities, at least being able to find those loads that may take me regionally within like a 6-7 hour radius, and
Hmm.
because of how low those bids are going for.
Really?
Yes, yes. In fact, most recent Gig Geezer segment, just for the hell of it, I put in bids at 77 cents a mile, 72 cents a mile, 62 cents a mile. Wasn't even close.
So what so
Oh, I
are
have
you?
no idea. I have no
Yeah.
idea what got it though, but it's safe
Wow.
to say it was less than those numbers.
Well, no, sure. It's probably 40, 50 cents when you relate, like you just gave us the example, the $10 or the 10 miles, $4. It's like that's 40 cents a mile. I mean, you're not
Yes.
making money. You're basically
Yeah.
maybe breaking even or at a little bit of a loss, right? With
Well,
all
you
the
may be
expenses,
covering your gas. Now, here's
Right.
what a couple of folk have explained to me. It could be like the box truck people who may have already a load, and so they're looking for something extra to
Added
pad
on.
on what they got. Or
Yeah.
it could be someone who's got a contract with the cargo van and is doing the
Yeah.
same thing. But someone like me who's trying to jump in and find an actual load to do
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm missing out. So,
well, let me ask you an interesting question. I want to continue to learn more about this because I think this is valuable information for my audience. But do you think that, so let's equate it to DoorDash, right? We talk about like Diamond Zone, get your acceptance rate up and then you'll see better orders, which, you know, do you think if you took some loads that maybe aren't great now, it could benefit you later? You know what I'm saying?
the only way
Have you
that it
thought
could
about
benefit,
that at all?
I've thought about it only from this standpoint, but
Mhm.
I'm not going to do it though. I'm not going to take those loads. Okay.
Yeah.
The only thing that I can see that is a positive is that if maybe I'm in front of the right people, I may be able to talk to them, or they may see something
Yes.
in me and say, "Hey,
Yes.
look, would you like to run these for me?" And then I'll really pay you. That's
Yeah.
the only way I can see something like that
Because it could be a foot in the door. You might be able to
yes,
run into that right person, build a relationship, and then that relationship turns into something very lucrative for you down the line, you know?
right. Yeah, that's the only thing.
Yeah.
So, so what I've been doing is, yeah, I put my van into service on December 17th, and it's kind of taken over from me using my F-150. Since
Mhm.
I've made this investment, I might as well go ahead on and put it in service. And so I may look a little, to some people, I may look a little gaudy or a dork or a fool with this cargo van, but they don't know that in the greater scheme of things, I have given myself greater capacity to make more money.
Mm.
And there have been some individual examples in which I've been able to get opportunities by virtue of me having the cargo van.
Oh, I bet. I mean, have you? So I'm assuming you're on Roadie and Courier already. Is that an accurate
Yes,
assumption? Okay.
yes,
You
yes.
have you gotten into the medical courier stuff at all? Have you thought about
I've
that?
looked into that.
Uh-huh.
But in fact, there's one place that's trying to get me to participate in an orientation session, and they're like
Mhm.
one of the leading. Well, actually, that's for transporting people for medical services. But
Mhm.
I was offered a contract by a company in which they were offering $145 a day.
Mhm.
Well, and I did a recent segment on that. Based on my calculations, I would be losing $70 a day if I
Oh
went
yeah.
ahead with that.
I mean, you're already making more than that with the way you're currently
Yeah,
doing
it's a
it.
pay cut. It's a pay cut.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a pay
And,
cut, you know.
and then there are others who are asking me about, well, what about Federal Express? Well, I've done Federal Express for the last 3 years on a seasonal basis.
Mhm.
And the guy that I've dealt with, who's a gem of a guy and all, he's offered to pay me as much as $200 a day. But that
Mm.
means I'm going to have to run at least 100 stops a day.
Well, plus your costs are up. Your fuel cost is more now, right? Where you got
Yes.
the van, so you're you know
Well,
that you
actually,
know.
it's about the same or a little less
Oh,
because
okay.
I actually go oftentimes a third day without having to go to the gas station. Whereas with
Oh,
F one
interesting.
fifty, it was every other day.
Are you on?
So
Is it diesel the cargo van or is it
no,
regular
no,
fuel?
it's
Okay, regular
regular,
fuel. Okay,
regular. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Now, what could be the case is that it's a 6 cylinder, whereas my F one fifty is an 8 cylinder. But the
Oh,
eight
that's
cylinder gets pretty good gas mileage.
yeah. Okay.
That's just modern technology there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But um, the yeah, with the Federal Express, think of it in these terms. All right, if he's offering me a couple $100, if I were to just do a full day,
Hmm.
I'm beating on my body every single day.
Oh yeah.
And if you do 100 stops, man, I promise you, at best you may finish it in 5 hours, but more than likely it's going to be 7 or 8 hours that
Yeah.
you're going to
A
do
hundred
that.
stop. That's a lot. It's a lot of
Yes.
work. It's a lot. It's
Yeah.
more work than picking up McDonald's and Chipotle. You know, it just
Yeah.
is. You know what I'm
You got
saying?
to
For
be
that
you got
amount
to
of
be in
money,
shape.
like
Yeah,
yeah,
you got to be in shape.
yeah.
And so it got me thinking when I was doing a couple of roadies, they're paying me like $1 something per stop, whereas I can
Mhm.
get a roadie and average $5, $6, $7 a stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
So who's coming out ahead?
Yeah. Yeah. I think without knowing much about what you're getting yourself into, I would say
Let's
it
see.
seems it seems
I'm sorry. Deliver with
go ahead.
task asked, did I add my cargo van to dispatch? Yes. In fact, that's where a
Let me
couple of my
look at
good
that.
opportunities have come
Okay.
on dispatch. But in my market, you don't see the volume of orders as you may see up in Charlotte or
Mm,
in Atlanta
mm,
or
mm.
Charleston for that matter. I don't know what
Yeah.
it is. I think it could be just Columbia. I don't know, but I think if you're in the right market, those apps you can really do good.
Sure. 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 I think it's like I was gonna say. I feel like at some point, and I'm sure you've thought of this. There's gonna be I think the real opportunities with the van is going to have to be, like you mentioned earlier, okay, having that connection with somebody, building that relationship with somebody, whether it's like a local contractors. Some people were talking about in the chat, I think it might have been Uber, Jeep, AZ, like flooring companies, delivering for somebody like on that level, right?
Yeah.
Finding a couple people like that you can do business with, then it's going to be like, okay, yeah, I'm not making $200 for all day. Like it's like $500 because you're delivering some serious stuff, some big weight.
Right.
Maybe it's even to where like a Courier, I believe, where you drop it somewhere and like they're the ones taking off the truck. So you're not having to do that. I feel like you're going to have to get some of those, I would imagine. But.
Yeah, the possibilities are there with these apps, and the thing is, I also gave another example, another gig user upload, in that some folks have suggested, well, why don't you just go get on with a logistics company and drive for them? And I gave the example where a lady recently told me her newest driver, who started about the same time as I got my van, he's made 16,000 in about the same amount of time, but he's driven 17,000 miles and he's been out for 2 and 3 weeks at a time. Mm-hmm. Well, in that same period of time, I've made just shy of 12,000 just strictly on the cargo van. Mm-hmm. I've driven like 80, 300. I may have mentioned 8,900, but so it's an 8,000 plus miles, roughly half of the miles. And I'm home every night.
Yeah.
And I'm averaging, he's averaging 99 cents a mile just based on that number. I don't like using that number, but he's averaging 99 cents a mile. And altogether, I'm averaging $1.40 a mile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you go based on
being home is invaluable.
Every night.
You know what I'm saying? I think you're a married man. I feel like I heard you say that before, right?
Well, I'm not married, but I make reference to a queen in my life. Yes.
Queen, even better. Love it. Okay. So, but being home, that's important, man. I think, there's money to be made over the road, and those guys can kill it, especially if they own their own vehicle or own truck or whatever. But like, you're 2-3 weeks at a time. Like, I couldn't do that. I could do it for maybe a month or two, but that'd probably be about it.
If I were 30 years younger, maybe even 20 years younger.
Yeah.
Yeah. And no queen in my life. Oh, shit. No big deal.
Yeah. Man. But we're not. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got, I got another baby on the way. Like, I just can't live that life, But yeah, if I'm 20 and I'm single, because then you're in a different city. Maybe you got queens all over the place. That's a whole lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? But we're not living that life anymore. So
No, yeah. And she's more than happy with me being home every night. And I'm more than happy being home every night as well.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So obviously there's some cost involved when you're doing what you do, and what you're doing. I wanted to, really a big reason why I wanted to have you on the show, and I appreciate you spending time with me, is you're a very unique individual, right? You're actually somebody that's doing what I got behind me, the Bet on You set goals one day at a time. Like, you are extreme forward thinking. Like, you're actually an independent contractor. You're a small business owner. You're actually putting your money where your mouth is. And most of us don't do that. And that's fine. Right. So I wanted my audience to hear that, because I obviously, without sharing numbers, but there's a cost involved when you want to make money and you want to go into business, right? And you want to really go for it. You're going to have to spend a little money to make a little money. And I feel like you're kind of in the middle of that right now, right?
Yeah. And that's what I said in my most recent upload. I mean, I've always believed that, well, there's two schools of thoughts. When I used to hustle at the racetrack and the bowling alleys and all, it was like, you have to have money to make money. Okay. And that's a hard thing to do. And it's a hard thing to actually to beat people out of their money when you ain't got no money, because now you're up there
way hard.
You're up there in the 10th frame and you're grabbing on that ball a little tighter than you did in the 5th frame. But that's another conversation. Okay. But that said, the other school of thought is that in order to make money, as you said, you've got to spend money. You can't cut corners. If you're going to do it right, you can't cut those fucking corners. And so when I see people, I saw those people saying, well, you can start your own cargo van business for less than $300. They're full of shit. Okay.
How? I mean,
how are they full of shit, man?
Yeah.
All right. As I uploaded and I put the numbers out there. Now I went about it completely different from what some people have done. And I've kind of shared how my process has been. I first of all worked on getting my shit together. Okay. First, and that was getting my credit together. Oh, and that was a process. Okay. And I shared how my FICO scores improved by over 200 points since 2018.
Nice. And I'm somebody that's worked on his credit, and that's not an easy thing to do, guys. So big ups for that. Yeah. I get
all right. From there, having my own insurance agent, I already had two business checking accounts. But you have to start with getting your going through your Secretary of State and starting that business name, creating the business name, registering it as an LLC. Most cases, but some people may say Inc. Corporation, but most times LLC. So you've got to have your papers before you can even open up two business checking accounts. And I recommend two business checking accounts for one for money coming in, one for money going out. So that you can separate the two. Because when you have to show your income, well, all you have to do is go to the money that's coming, that account where the money's coming in. And then you can show them that information. Okay. So now you've got your business name, your checking accounts, you got your credit together. All right. So then I happen to walk into the bank, and I'll say it now because it's all after the fact. And if you deal with Bank of America, if anybody's dealt with Bank of America, you know you got to have your shit together with those boys. Okay?
Oh yeah, yeah.
All right. So I walk into Bank of America thinking, now let's see if I get a business credit card.
Yeah.
I was approved on the spot. Okay, with a pretty good limit.
But the prerequisite is what some of y'all might have missed is you got to get that credit score good. Like you have to have that. That is powerful. People that make money in this country, you get that credit score is can hinder you from some opportunities. I just want to throw that in there for some of y'all that might have missed. Like geezers, you got to start the right way, and I think that's where he's going with it. Go continue.
Yeah. So from there, I happen to tell the people that I was looking. I also want to look into see if about a cargo van. I want to look into a cargo van and find out what I might be financed for. I knew that I could go to a car lot and get it in my good name. All right, but I wanted to get it in my business name. And so they said, "Oh yeah." So they told me, "Come back with a vehicle ID number." And so they ran all my stuff later in the week, approved right on the spot. I already knew how much I was. In fact, it was a matter of just get the van. Tell us what the van is, and we'll tell you what your terms are. All right.
Sure.
So now all I had to do is find a van. That's a hard one because if you're trying to find a van that the bank's going to finance, it's got to be 5 years or newer, 75,000 miles or less. That's typically what it is. The other thing with the banks is that when it comes to a commercial loan, or in a business name, they're not going to finance for the same loan to value as a personal vehicle. Personal vehicle, they'll tend to go more. They'll finance more on a personal vehicle. So that means you got to have some money to put down, or, some type of means of putting money down. Okay. Now, all that's out the way. We're talking about the van, but to start up the van, it was like for me, $2,300 to put down, including gap insurance. The next thing was insurance. Now, me being an insurance agent, I already knew that I could set myself up with Progressive, which is where I went through. Okay. But looking around and all, if you really want to get in on the big opportunities, you're going to have that $1 million coverage, $1 million liability coverage with the 100,000 cargo coverage, and have commercial general liability of at least $1 million. So I had all that. That's $1,500, but that's for two drivers now. It's not just for me. It's for two drivers, me and the queen of my life. She's also on the papers with the cargo van company or the transport company.
Well, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Is she on it because she sometimes is going to use the vehicle so that she has to be, or okay?
Yeah. She's in on it. I mean,
got it. Okay.
Yeah. It's just that I'm doing all the work right now, but she is more than capable of coming in and all that.
Right.
So, all right. So now that's $3,800 right there. Then there's your authority. That's $300. Then there's
you got to get it tagged and all that. You got to pay a tag.
Yeah, I'm gonna go through all that. So then there's the individual compliances, which cost me another $500. Then there was property tax in South Carolina. You have to pay your property tax before you get your license plate. And then I also got the vehicle magnets, so I could put the US DOT number on the side of the vehicle. All that came out to $6,000.
Yeah, and that's before. And listen, y'all. He hasn't made $1 yet, right?
No. That's all along. That's all what I consider my startup. Okay.
Well, what I'm saying is that's before you've even made money with the van, though. Correct.
Well, if I've made 12,000 in 2 months, or just shy of 12,000, I've made some type of profit.
Oh, you've made it back. Yeah. But that was all in the beginning, or were you able to allocate some of these expenses throughout the 2 months?
Throughout the 2 months, but again, I still call it startup because these are things that you have to get going. Okay. But, depends on how you go about doing it. I mean, one guy said he got the van and he wished he would not have gotten the van first. He should have gotten the business, got his business name startup and all that stuff. But again, I mean, that's the number that I think is realistic if you want to do it right.
So $6,000 is what you're saying. Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. Now, I may be on the low end considering that I didn't have to put out as much for my van. Okay. Now, you could go about with the insurance side and don't get as high a coverage as I had. But then again, that's also going to be based on your insurance score, which is a factor of your credit and your driving history.
And where you live. I mean, your
that
zip
too,
code,
yes.
Your zip code. It's for me. If Geezer's living in St. Louis, he's going to pay more insurance than I'm sure of it. Like because St. Louis has got not great crime and all that. So that sometimes where you live in
Carolina is not one of your best states for insurance as well. I mean,
really? I wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a county, Orangeburg County. I would say roughly 40% of the people in that county are going around without insurance.
Interesting. Well, St. Louis is like that too. Yeah, it's bad.
That's another conversation. But there are areas, where the insurance may be less. In fact, when I lived in South Florida, and I don't know if he's not in the chat though, but when I lived in South Florida, I lived just west of State Road 7 down in Plantation, Florida. By me living less than 500 feet west, my insurance at that time was like 40% less than being on the other side.
That's crazy. That's crazy, man. Yeah. But it's probably because the zip code was different. You know what I'm saying? Like in just the overall, sometimes they look at that zip code. It's weird. Yeah. It's crazy. So basically roughly 6,000, 6K. And then in a couple of months, you've made 12. So you're obviously getting a return on that investment, right? What are some of the goals that you have, if you have them yet, for 2023 with this cargo van? Like, have you thought about that? Like, what do you want to realistically do with this thing for the next 10 months or so?
Well, realistically, I want to be in a position where I'm seeing that 82.5. 82.5 is what you make each month to get to 100,000.
Okay. Got it.
So I'm 75% of the way there if I'm making consistently six G's, six top, maybe touching 7 sometimes. So I'm 75% of the way there. I got to find that extra 25% some way, somehow. Okay.
Now, do you say that 100K, 6 figures cargo van only? Are you also going to use that? You still doing the food delivery? Like how does that work for you? Are you trying to replace the food delivery with
I would like to flip it to where I'm not as dependent on the gig food delivery stuff. Okay. I would love to be able to do that where gig food delivery just supplements it, and I just happen to use the cargo van to do that. Now, one benefit for me with the cargo van is that I've been able to park my F-150. Everything is on the cargo van from an insurance standpoint and everything. Even though with the F-150, it's actually listed for business. So I do pay a little more in insurance because of that. And so I'm not concerned about it. I have a rideshare endorsement on the F-150.
Yeah.
But still, everything is done with the cargo van. So I don't worry about insurance issues now.
Yeah.
If something were to happen, because I'm in that 100% of the time now.
Yeah.
But I would like to, I want to get into maybe transport, medical transport of patients, because, there's a lot of sick folk in South